Let's talk about why Alien Covenant sucks. A sci-fi disaster of biblical proportions. Alien Covenant, the 2017 follow-up to the baffling Prometheus, promised to answer all those burning questions left by its predecessor. Instead, it served up a steaming pile of clichés, plot holes, and enough pseudo-philosophical nonsense to make you wonder if the real alien is Ridley Scott, abducting your time and attention for a movie that makes about as much sense as a fish riding a bicycle. While some may defend it as a thrilling addition to the Alien franchise, let's be honest. Alien Covenant is a mess of epic proportions, blending horror, sci-fi, and unintentional comedy into a cocktail that's as enjoyable as a facehugger at a family reunion. The plot of Alien Covenant is like a roller coaster designed by a blindfolded toddler, lurching from one nonsensical set piece to another with all the coherence of a fever dream. The movie kicks off with the spaceship Covenant receiving a mysterious transmission that leads them to an uncharted planet, which is the first sign that this crew has never seen a horror movie. What could possibly go wrong? Upon landing, they discover a world that's conveniently void of any life other than a few creepy spores and a robot with a god complex. Things quickly spiral into chaos as members of the crew start getting infected, killed, or just plain confused by the rapidly unraveling plot. The survivors stumble upon David, the android from Prometheus, who's been playing Frankenstein on this desolate planet. From here, the plot takes a nosedive into a series of increasingly ridiculous events, including the introduction of neomorphs, xenomorphs, and a whole lot of philosophical mumbo-jumbo about creation and destruction. By the time the credits roll, you're less concerned about the fate of the characters and more impressed by how many different ways the filmmakers found to make you question the very concept of storytelling. The characters in Alien Covenant are a mix of clichés and cardboard cutouts, stumbling through the plot with all the grace of a drunken sailor on a pogo stick. Catherine Waterston's Daniels is supposed to be the strong, resilient heroine, but she often comes off as more confused than capable, making decisions that make you question if she's actually trying to survive, or just really bad at playing the odds. Michael Fassbender pulls double duty as both David and the newer android Walter, delivering a performance that's equal parts creepy and confusing. His portrayal of David as a philosophical madman with delusions of godhood is less menacing and more reminiscent of a particularly pretentious art student who's just discovered Nietzsche. Walter, on the other hand, is the robotic equivalent of a golden retriever, loyal to a fault and about as interesting as a can of beans. The rest of the crew is a collection of forgettable faces and inexplicably bad decisions, from Billy Crudup's Oram, whose faith is as unwavering as his inability to detect a trap, to Danny McBride's Tennessee, who manages to combine the roles of comic relief and plot device with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Their attempts to navigate the increasingly bizarre scenarios are so filled with poor planning and idiotic choices that you'll be left wondering if the real mission was to see how quickly they could end up as alien chow. The dialogue in Alien Covenant is a masterclass in how not to write a screenplay, filled with lines that sound like they were lifted straight from a rejected philosophy textbook. The film's attempts at deep, meaningful conversations are so ham-fisted that you'll be left wondering if the writers were aiming for a serious sci-fi epic, or just really bad at subtlety. David's monologues about creation and destruction might be compelling if they didn't feel so forced, making you question if he's actually trying to be profound or just really into hearing himself talk. His interactions with Walter are equally painful, with conversations that sound like they were written by someone who's never actually heard two people talk to each other before. The rest of the crew's dialogue is a mix of awkward exposition and cringe-worthy one-liners, with lines that are more likely to induce groans than gasps. The film's attempts at humor are so forced and out of place that you'll be left questioning if they're actually trying to lighten the mood, or just really bad at timing. The action sequences in Alien Covenant are a dizzying blend of chaotic choreography and confusing camera work that make you feel like you're watching a particularly violent episode of Sesame Street. The film's various battles and chases are filled with improbable stunts and ridiculous set pieces, turning everyday objects into weapons in a way that's more baffling than exciting. The infamous back-bursting scene, where an alien emerges from a crew member's spine, is supposed to be a horrifying spectacle. Instead, it feels more like a poorly rendered video game cutscene, where the objective is to gross out the audience as quickly as possible. The film's reliance on gory special effects and improbable scenarios makes the stakes feel so low that you'll be left wondering if they're actually fighting for their lives or just really, really into shock value. The final showdown on the spaceship is a mess of flashing lights and CGI that looks more like a particularly trippy screensaver than an epic battle between good and evil. The fight scenes are so filled with random explosions and improbable gadgetry that you'll be left questioning if the characters are actually fighting or just really into blowing things up for fun. The special effects in Alien Covenant are a mix of impressive visuals and laughably bad CGI that looks like it was thrown together by a team of animators who got lost in the dark and had to finish their work on a deadline. The film's various depictions of alien creatures and futuristic technology are filled with flashy effects that are meant to wow the audience but often come off as a distraction from the film's flimsy plot and wooden acting. The CGI is particularly jarring in the scenes involving the neomorphs and xenomorphs, which look more like rejected designs from a low-budget horror movie than fearsome alien creatures. The film's reliance on special effects to tell its story often feels like a crutch, with the flashy visuals doing little to mask the film's many narrative shortcomings. Alien Covenant is a baffling parade of logical inconsistencies and plot holes that make you wonder if anyone involved in the production actually read the script. The idea that a spaceship crew would decide to investigate a mysterious signal on an uncharted planet without any preparation or backup is absurd enough, but the film's internal logic is so inconsistent that you'll be left questioning if they're actually exploring space or just really bad at their jobs. The logistics of David's experiments are equally laughable. How does he manage to create an entire ecosystem of deadly creatures with nothing more than a few vials of goo and a lot of free time? Why does everyone he meets either instantly trust him or immediately try to kill him? And how is it that he manages to manipulate events so perfectly that you'll be left questioning if he's a master strategist or just really lucky? The film's resolution is equally perplexing. The final battle with the xenomorph wraps up in a way that's both predictable and unsatisfying, leaving you wondering if the whole movie was just an elaborate setup for a particularly flashy fireworks display. The film's lack of any clear message or theme makes it feel more like a collection of random events than a cohesive story, leading to a conclusion that's as baffling as it is abrupt. In conclusion, Alien Covenant is a film that's more entertaining for its unintentional humor and over-the-top action than for any actual storytelling or character development. Its plot is a roller coaster of ridiculousness, its characters are a motley crew of misfits and morons, and its dialogue is a script full of groan-worthy philosophizing and clunky exposition. The special effects are a flashy mix of impressive visuals and laughably bad CGI, and the film's logical inconsistencies are so glaring that you'll be left questioning if anyone involved actually took the material seriously. So if you're in the mood for a good laugh at a movie that takes itself way too seriously and delivers a wild ride through a bizarre sci-fi adventure, grab some popcorn, sit back, and enjoy the absurdity that is Alien Covenant. Just don't expect to be terrified, thrilled, or even mildly entertained by anything other than the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Quirky Critic signing out.